in my country that persecute gay men by 14 years imprisonment. Before I join you on this call, I just spoke to McKinsey and Baker, a law firm in UK that is helping us to fight the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act in Nigeria because we're filing a class action suit against the government, stating that I was displaced because of a law that prevents me as a Nigerian citizen to exercise my basic right of freedom of association, freedom of speech, and freedom to be a human being.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll just, yeah, thank you so much for being vulnerable enough to kind of share your story. So I'm going to do a brief intro, and then we'll get right into our interview, if you're
Sure,
comfortable with that. All right,
sure.
wonderful. This is Andre Koen, and welcome to another episode of Speaking of Diversity and Inclusion at the Mayo Clinic. And I want to start the second season with reminding us as to kind of why we're even in this space of talking about diversity and inclusion. And so we recognize that we all come from different places. We have different contexts, that our ways of living may in fact be different based on our context. And it's extremely important that we recognize the importance of allowing other people to, at its base, exist, live. And so I invited a brother to kind of talk about his experience with just that, carving out a place on this planet where he can live in peace. And so we'll get right to that. So I don't want to mispronounce your name. So if you can say your name for me, and then I'll repeat it back for our audience.
My name is Edafe Okboro. Edafe.
All right, Edafe. All right, so Edafe is an activist, and you're currently in New York City. And can you kind of tell us your story, Edafe, as you've come to the United States as a political refugee, in a sense? Is that correct?
Yeah. So I will start with this. Like, diversity is not white, black, gay, straight, Christian, Muslim. Among whites, among blacks, among gays, there's diversity. Everybody should know this, that diversity is not an option. Inclusion of people is a necessity in our today's world. So my name is Edafe Okboro. I'm a human rights activist and a writer. I authored a book titled Bear 26, Memoir of an African Man's Asylum in the United States. So when I migrated from Nigeria to United States, I was fleeing Nigeria because my life was in danger as a gay man, and secondly, as a gay rights activist, because the government of Nigeria in 2014 passed a law that criminalizes same-sex by 14 years imprisonment, activists by 10 years imprisonment, association of gay men, churches, or anywhere that abide or aid activities of gay men will be persecuted by 10 years imprisonment. So I was fleeing to America. When I was coming to America, all I knew about America was the land of freedom, sold the American dream outside United States. So when I came to America, I discovered that immigrants are treated as demons, the same way a gay man is treated in Nigeria. So I was fleeing one form of violence to meet another form of violence in America. If United States has been known as a country of immigrants and a country of freedom, immigrants should not be put in chains and thrown in jail.
Yeah, talk about that just for a second, because that's one of the things we pride ourselves on, right? So America, the United States, we're the land of freedom and the home of the brave and all this kind of stuff. And what you're saying to me is that as an immigrant, as a refugee, you actually found quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you came, what was your port of entry? Did you come through like
I came, I
New
flew
York or?
I flew through JFK, and when I arrived at JFK Terminal 4, I had a 2 years visitor visa to stay in United States for 6 months and leave. So when I came in, I was stamped to stay in, but I don't have any friends or family. I was fleeing persecution. That's why I came to United States. So I took my bag and I went to an immigration officer, and I told the immigration officer, "Sir, I'm fleeing my country because my life is in danger." And the immigration officer questioned me. After some questions, they told me that, sir, we don't have anywhere to take you to. We're going to take you to a jail. I was like, a jail? I didn't commit any crime. I came here seeking asylum, and I told you that my life was in danger. Surprisingly, I was put in handcuffs and I was put on chains, both my waist and my legs. I was thrown into a bus and I was driven to a jail in New Jersey. So when I got there, my clothes and everything was taken and I was given a jumpsuit like a criminal. So that was what my book was all about. Bed 26 is the tale of how immigrants who come into this country lose their name to numbers. So I was just named an arriving alien and I was given a bed number.
Wow. Now, was that the 26, the number you were given, or was that the day that something happened?
Bed 26 was the first bed I slept in America. That was my bed number in the jail.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
So,
goodness.
so this is something in America is that aliens who arrived at the border are being detained, and gain private prisons is one of the ways in which people use in making immigrants. Private prisons is one of the most lucrative industry in America. It costs the government $3 billion each year to detain immigrants in detention center because by federal mandate, 35 immigrants have to be detained each day in America, and it costs $208 as at statistics of 2018 a day to detain an immigrant. $200 times I was detained for 6 months in the jail times 6 months times
Wow.
$200 is more than 40 something thousand US dollars
Yeah.
times 35,000 immigrants. This will transform our healthcare system and other system in United States. And if I am being released from the detention center by bond, the bond companies charge you $400 a month to wear the bracelet on your leg. So immigrants are, are seen as a lucrative business in America.
And that doesn't even start to talk about if they have children, right? So those
Yeah.
numbers start to get multiplied when you
So
apply. Yeah, go ahead.
if you have children, the children are kept in childhood detention. When they get to 18 years old, they are being transferred to adult detention. So childhood detention, these children are like foster care is far, far better than that. Even in the detention center where I stayed, the staffs are not trained on how they handle people. They treat you less than a human being. The food you eat are less nutritional composition compared to an appropriate food. And we even work in the detention center voluntarily for $1 a day. We take care of the detention center, clean the kitchen and everything. So it is really a system that is meant to batter you to sign your deportation and return back to your country.
Yeah. So what made you? So you have this bad experience in basically in these kind of internment camps, so to speak, right?
Mm,
So these
yeah.
detention centers. But what made you want to still be a part of adding to the greatness of America? Like, what made you say that the United States is still a place that I want to, even though I'm facing these bad things are happening to me, that this is still a country that I want to be a part of and to add my greatness too.
Because you have tooth pain, it doesn't mean that when the tooth pain is gone, you're not going to brush your teeth. But because by brushing your teeth, you avoid further tooth pain.
Mm.
So diversity, inclusion, and being able to be on the front line, this is what has created change from time memorial. The civil rights movements, the gay rights movements, was as a result of activists fighting for people like me, black, gay, to be able to live freely in this country. So if I know the importance of adding a voice, it's fighting today so that generations to come, people like me who are migrating, we know that there was people who fought for them to be able to be who they are. Social change is a slow process, but by being able to educate people one at a time is a way of changing the minds and hearts of people. So I believe that I am a bridge, and by being a bridge is by not to be helping people to be able to cross to the other side of the road. Even though it's just one person, that person will be a tree one day. because a seed that is planted becomes a tree and bears fruits. So the reason why is that America is known as a country of freedom. It is only the country in the whole world that me, that is not a citizen, can be able to question the perpetuality of what makes me a free man.
Mm.
If I can do that, people fought for me to be able to do that. So I deserve to be able to give voices to other people like myself.
So as I was looking at your podcast, I was looking at your book, which I haven't bought yet, so I'll buy that book. But when I was looking at a number of things, you talk about this idea of being a bridge, and you just mentioned it just a second ago. But what about those people who say, "Well, I don't want people walking all over me," right? So, like, is it that I'm being a pushover if I just let people, do these things? They should have to, pay a toll to cross this bridge, or they should have to do something. Talk more about this idea. So how can I be a bridge without losing myself or being taken advantage of? So how do I become that bridge?
So a durable bridge is gotten by laying a strong foundation. A durable bridge is a bridge that has been run over thousands of times and doesn't fall because it's been run over thousands of times. America has been a sovereign country for 300 years. They have been a durable bridge to thousands of people from different parts of the world. And the strength of America is the ability to absorb thousands and thousands and hundreds of people from different parts of the world. So it's the same thing with human beings, is that today we're not able to be a durable bridge because of the misconception of a genius brain. The misconception of a genius brain is that one person is a genius. That is not true. I believe that we respect people like Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, who fought for freedom for so many people. But they are not the people that did it alone. They read books, they listened to ideas, there was collaboration, there were teamwork. But other people in the team might not be remembered. Doesn't mean that those people do not participate in creating change, right?
That's true.
So the idea of teamwork is to be able to produce an end result that is valuable for the end users. But today, people want to be the genius brain. And by being the genius brain is branding themselves to be the end or be all. By doing so, they throw other people under the bus because they don't want other people to be recognized. That is what Trump is. Trump is a person that doesn't want other people to be recognized because he wants to be seen as the genius brain. The misconception of the genius brain throw teamwork under the bus. So in a team, there are some people that are idea generator. There are some people that are idea formulator. There are some people that are just there to write things on the board. There are some people that are there to speak. And one person will be choosing to present the team idea. So to be a durable bridge is to know that collaboration is the mother and father of creativity.
Yeah.
To be able to work with people, to be able to produce results, and don't just want to say that, oh, I work with this team and nobody recognizes me. And the reason why people fall into that trap is solely because of higher expectation. The secret to being happy in life is having low or no expectation, because when you are surprised, it is very good. But what is not good is to be disappointed because of a very high expectation by saying that, oh, I work on that team. Why was my name not mentioned?
It's so funny. So I met a woman who is Eastern European and Eastern European, Western European, Eastern European, and we were talking about horses, right? And someone said, "Well, that is a pretty horse." And the woman replied with a puzzle in her question, right? She was like, "A pretty horse," and the person that had brought that up was sharing how, what a beautiful horse looks like. And the woman chuckled and she said, "In my country, there's no such thing as a beautiful horse, because a horse is a tool." Right. So the expectation is that it's something that we use as a just like a screwdriver or whatnot. And I think your point that all too often we have way too many expectations that lead to disappointment, that lead to disillusionment, and in many cases those expectations have nothing to do with reality. They're all about us and our
Do you
perception.
know? Do you know that the bamboo is a durable tree? Why is that? The bamboo can bend and return back to its position
Yep.
so many times. Only few trees can do that. The reason why people get disappointed a lot is that the society is now being built in a capitalist way that survival mode makes us to do us versus them.
Hmm.
But us versus them mentality is an American mentality. In Africa, we believe in community, especially Nigeria, that you should look after your community members, which is very important. The idea of individualistic kind of society brings about a mental health issues that people are not able to find community to discuss about issues that are important to them, because when they do it, people see them as weak people. People judge them, and people end up committing suicide. People end up being depressed. People end up being having anxiety. Who can I share my problems with? We should be able to receive and give, because they say blessed is the giver more than the receiver. But in this kind of society, we want to take, 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 take,
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
It's just bad.
I'm gonna the elephant in the room, right? I'm just going to put this out here. You just said that in Nigeria and in Africa, it's a community centered system. However, they have isolated folks like yourself from that community. So how does that get reconciled? How can we be a community, but then we isolate a particular part of our community and say they're unworthy of all the other stuff that we want to share with all the other people? So how does that
It,
work?
it happens everywhere. The In America, when HIV was a big menace, a lot of people ostracized people living with HIV and AIDS. When they begin to discover that, oh, my uncle is HIV positive, oh, my daughter is HIV positive, oh, my nephew, they begin to understand that this could be a member of my family,
Mm-hmm.
and their attitudes began to change. In Nigeria, just like most part of the world, LGBTQ persons as ostracized because a lot of people do not know that their family members and friends are part of that community. When my mother discovered I was gay, I believe from then onwards, she found it very difficult to discriminate other people that their children are gay,
Mm-hmm.
because she would say this could be a daffy that another person would treat like that. Gay people are not visible in Nigeria a lot. Visibility brings about social acceptance. When a lot of people become visible and a lot of people have known that, oh, my child is suffering from depression because I didn't accept it. Oh, that child that died yesterday was a gay child and committed suicide. There will be attitude change. There will be acceptance. There will be love. There will be care showed, because when things affect us personally, we begin to want to find solutions. A lot of people have not known that their family members are part of that community. So
Mm-hmm.
it's seen as foreign. So it's been ostracized.
So can you tell me a little bit about your work? What are you currently? What are the projects you're currently working on, and what are you doing in New York right now?
So I work as the director of Robert Daniel Jones Refugee Shelter. It's the only shelter in New York City that provide housing for asylum seekers and refugees, because there is a large vacuum of housing issue in New York City. So asylum seekers and refugees are likely to go into human trafficking, sex trade, and anything just to have a place to sleep. So providing a shelter is one way of alleviating the problem of housing for asylum seekers and refugees, which is a big problem. Secondly, I am the founder of the Pont LLC. It's a storytelling platform whereby I give undocumented people, asylum seekers, and activists the opportunity to share their stories to community members. So it's a story sharing platform whereby people are able to understand deeply the reasons why people flee and the reasons why people live in a diverse community. My work in general, I've been surrounded about compassion and bringing people to understand that our differences do not divide us, but bring us together because there's more similarities to us as human than to pick on our differences. Picking on our differences is what the white people use in enslaving us because white supremacy is division.
Mm.
Division have created a lot in our society. So me, one thing I begin to understand is that even me as a black man in Nigeria, we were divided over ethnicity, religion. It's a human thing. Among black people, we try to divide ourselves with class. Even Africans think that African Americans are poor. They think they're better than them. It's not true. I told somebody that in Nigeria, who are the poor people? The poor people are Nigerians. So if you are living in New York City or the Bronx, and it's majority of black people, the poor people there will be black people. If you are living in Maine, that is all white people, the poor people there will be white people. That our biases is basically due to lack of humility. That when we have cultural humility, when we have cultural sensitivity, we will begin to know that me dressing in a certain kind of way, I see it appropriately and professionally because that's how African people dress. You wearing suit and tie, see it that way because that's how white people or people in America dress. And our weather predicates our behaviors and our culture, the food I eat, the kind of soil that the climate produce. It is snowy in this part of the world, it is sunny there, so I dress in a certain kind of way. We are different because we have different culture, different way of life. That we shouldn't see our differences as less, but
Right.
we should see it as the way of life of those particular kind of people. So my work is surrounded around training people on cross-cultural communication.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So as we kind of end this time together, is there anything that you would suggest for us to think about either? Oh, no. Before I close, I did want to ask this because you said, you said it really quickly, so it was kind of like a drive-by. So I do want to hang a tack on this concept. And you did say that refugees and asylum seekers oftentimes find themselves in situations where the choices are, uh, sex trafficking, kind of
Mhm.
underground kinds of stuff. And some of the rhetoric that we've heard about immigrants and asylum seekers is that they are criminal in element. But what you're suggesting is that the criminality is what might be necessary. I mean, in that criminal world, that the criminal world may be trying to capitalize on those individuals, and they're
So
for
let
basic
me
basic
let me
needs.
let me
Yeah.
explain in details. People focus more on what and where people are fleeing to more than why those people are fleeing.
Mm-hmm.
It is a privilege for me to be in America and to be granted a refugee status in America. I accept that privilege. There are thousands other migrants that do not have a food to eat this morning. They are staying in refugee camps in different parts of the world. It's a privilege for me to be able to have a flight ticket to come to America. That being said, the reason why I flee was because my life was in danger between life and death.
Yep.
If I pose this question as a parent, if your child life is in danger, what would you do to save your child's life?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to risk your status? If yes, what makes it different from the person that is fleeing from persecution?
Yep.
That being said, the answer to your question is that refugees and asylees and migrants are put in substantial in positions that endanger their life. For example, in New York City, there's housing for people living with HIV and AIDS, but there is no housing for refugees and migrants. Refugees sleep with people who have HIV and AIDS, and if the person is not on treatment and offer you $200 to sleep without condom, and you just need $200 to complete your rent, you're likely to do it. Somebody told me that, sir, all my friends told me is that if I have HIV, I will have benefit from the government and I will have a free place to stay. So should I have HIV? Because I'm currently negative. Secondly, undocumented immigrants in America report their taxes but do not get tax benefits. So it is a lie and a force from the pit of hell that immigrants do not pay taxes. They do. Undocumented do not get the benefit of paying taxes, but documented also get the benefits. In the population of migrants in America, 90% of the people in America either migrated as first generation, second generation, third generation, forced to be here by their forefathers or something. So there is a record of migration one way or the other. For example, during Jim Crow, the age of citizenship, the first flood of migration in between America was from the south to the north because there were laws that were progressive in the north. So if people flee, because even in America, there were laws that were bad in one side as regard to good in the other side. Today, people are fleeing because of America is a shiny light and a beam to the world. And if America has not been destroyed for 300 years that people have been migrating here, it's a misconception that there is war in the southern border because everybody do not want to leave their country. People are forced to flee because they face persecution. It is snowing outside in New York City today. Before I got to 26 years, I have never seen snow in my life. I love Africa. I love Nigeria. I love the food. I love everything. But I have to leave my family and celebrate Christmas here alone and struggle with my college degree becomes second to their college degree.
Yeah.
My accent becomes second. My skin color becomes second. My passports become third because I use a refugee traveling document. I lost the sense of being a human to migrate here. Who will do that if there is not an underlying reason to leave their places of origin?
Yeah. So now we'll close, right? So what do you want us to do? So how can we be helpful both in the conversations around immigrants, asylees, and refugees, or kind of GLBTQ issues, or where all of those intersections happen, right? Because that's what we're really talking about is intersectionality. So all of these things coming to impact a group of people in some very dynamic ways, but we typically look at them as one piece, but never as a whole. So what can we do?
So one is to have cultural humility, is that people are different all over the world. When you have a cultural shock that, is gay, is a refugee, or is black, or is blue, when you have that cultural shock, one thing to do is to be humble, to know that people come from somewhere and that makes them different. That's cultural humility. The solution to the problem is yet unknown. But to be helpful is that one, when I came to the United States, I knew nobody here, but there was a network of community. You can volunteer for an organization or a nonprofit that provides services for asylum seekers. Number two is that you know the country or the city where you live in. You can just be a body to a refugee or an asylee by showing him that in America, resume is written on this way, or when you're going for an interview, you should dress this way. A train ride in New York City is $2.75. Because of $2.75, somebody could be ordered deported. If they have a case in court and they don't have $2.75, if they jump the turnstile, they are caught and they are taken as criminals, and the judge ordered them deported, and they couldn't take a train there, they will lose their case and they will face a criminal case and they will end up being deported. Secondly, because of $2.75, a refugee who is supposed to go for a job interview cannot swipe in the subway. They end up not going for that job interview. So you think that $5 will not do anything, but donating $5 to a nonprofit that provide access to services for this organization will be very helpful. Thirdly, is that if you're a university student, college student, or something like that, you could do research about the struggles of migrants. It will help to educate people. Fourthly, is that shared messages. If you support any particular group, be able to stand with them, not just in your own head. When you hear a conversation that is ignorant or does not deposit the right messages, you can say, no, I know of a refugee who lived by me, or I've heard of somebody, or I've seen somebody, that this is not true of what they are saying. These are just few ways you can help. As an organization, one of the ways you can help is to call a refugee to come and share their story with your members of your organization or an LGBTQ person, so that people can hear from them firsthand and see the struggles that they go through to just live as humans.
Wow. Thank you for those tips. And thank you for being a mirror back to us in the United States, because oftentimes we think of ourselves as this great nation, and we are great. However, we do have some beauty marks, right? So
America is the greatest country in the world. For me, I believe so. Some people think it's subjective, but why I believe so is that there are only few countries in the world that everybody have the right to question their government openly, in hiding, have freedom of speech about how they feel about anything, and be protected by a constitution. The worst kind of persecution you can face as a human being is when a piece of paper cannot protect you.
Yeah.
Even me in America, as a gay man, I can be discriminated, but there's a law that I can use to challenge that discrimination, which is not available for most people all around the world.
Yeah. No. So, I love the piece about cultural humility, and that's what we'll leave our listeners with today. I challenge you, listeners, as you engage in this podcast, to think about your own cultural humility and what those two words mean for you. And we'll spend some time in some lessons that we'll do as a part of the notes of this podcast, talking about how you can become or how you enact cultural humility. But I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story today. And we will put a link to your podcast and to your book so folks can really read your story. And we thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you very much, Keon.
All right. So this is Andre Koen from Mayo Clinic, and this has been another episode of Speaking of Diversity and Inclusion at the Mayo Clinic. Take care of each other, and we will see you next time. Boom. So much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll keep in contact, and I'll check and see if we have a budget to possibly bring you out to speak and whatnot out here in Rochester, Minnesota. I don't know if you'd be interested in doing that or not.
I would love to.
All right.
I've never been to Minnesota before.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a little different than New York, but if you could do New York, you could do Rochester, Minnesota. So
I do workshops on cultural humility,
okay,
diversity and inclusion. So I'm always open to
Yep. So even
Okay.
if we, yeah, and even if we can't bring you in, what I also may check and see is look at our budget and see if we can do a webinar with you, right?
Mhm.
So you can do that, and then your message can still get out. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty. Have a great day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lastly, are you on Instagram?
I am. Yep. So I am. It is AMNEOK on Instagram.
Neok.
Yeah, it's my last name backwards. So
There are so many. Okay, okay.
yep, AMNEOK.
Andre Koen.
Yep.
You do you use your Instagram?
I do for my family stuff, not for work. But yeah, but if you wanna connect through Instagram, feel free.
Okay. Okay, I will.
All right.
Yeah, have a nice one.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
You too.
All right. Peace.